Hello, everyone. This is Francesca Vigliani from Cloud Academy. Thank you so much for joining us for this session. It's very exciting to see so many of you with us today. Before introducing our speakers, I wanted to make just a couple of housekeeping announcements. I'd like to remind you that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared with you via email as soon as it is available. During the webinar, we will hold a Q&A time. So if you have any questions for our speakers, feel free to add them in the chat box and they will answer them towards the end of the webinar. Okay, I'm all done with the announcements. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our speakers, Valentina Zaccolo and Bryony Harrower.
Thank you, Francesca. Hi, everyone. My name is Valentina, and I'm a Senior People and Talent Acquisition Specialist at Cloud Academy. I work in our Swiss office, and I have been here at Cloud Academy for more than 2 years now, helping our hiring managers scale their teams. And I'm also the HR representative for some of the teams that we have in the Swiss office. As Francesca mentioned, I have Bryony Harrower with me today. She's our lead enterprise product manager in the Swiss office. Hi, Bryony. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Yeah. Hey, everyone. So I have been working at Cloud Academy for about a year. I relocated from London to the Swiss office, where we are now, actually, as a senior product manager. And now I've moved on to heading up the enterprise division at Cloud Academy. So that's cool. And yeah, I'm just really passionate about how tech is really for everyone. And I'm kind of a living example of that. So I'm really excited to tell you a bit more about making the move to tech.
Yeah. Awesome. And I was thinking that I remember I interviewed Bryony for a senior product manager role, and we hired her right in the middle of the pandemic last year. And after just a few months, she was able to move from the UK to Switzerland in order to work with us. And I mean, that was definitely an impressive achievement for her.
Yes.
Okay, Bryony, so let's get started as I have some questions for you today. So let's start with my first question. So would you like to tell us a little bit about your studies? What led you to follow that specific path?
Yeah, so I studied history at university, and then I went on to do a master's degree in media and management, which involved doing things like writing a dissertation on the show The Great British Bake Off. If anyone knows it, it's about cakes. And at school, I really did all of the arts and humanities subjects, like music, French, English. I wrote loads of poetry. And I always really remember, actually, and it's funny now, I used to be like, I'm so bad at maths. Whenever people talk to me about like science or math subjects, I would just write it off like I'm bad at maths, even though actually the facts kind of said the opposite story. I actually got quite good marks in those subjects. But yeah, I think I just found the creative or more creative subjects a little bit more exciting at that age, and given, the kind of the breadth of the syllabus you do at school. And I always remember, yeah, I wanted to be like a writer or a teacher or just do academia. So for me, like history and that kind of stuff was exciting. So I made those kind of choices.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. And why did you decide to change your career? And why was it important to you to make this switch?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a long story, so bear with me. But after I graduated, right, I realized, I already have a plan here. I've got these kind of very random degrees. And I ended up just doing some internships while I was at uni in marketing. For example, I did something at the Royal Shakespeare Company because I was so into theatre. But really in the background, I was casting a pretty wide net for a full-time job. I was not being particularly fussy. I wanted a job. And it was kind of lucky, really, what happened, because I had a couple of offers. One was in marketing, but then I landed this offer for a graduate scheme at a tech company in London. And I was suddenly thinking, like, I used to love tech. Like, I used to spend hours like building silly little websites on websites like Neopets, if anyone remembers that from like the 90s. And all of that time spent kind of just not really understanding what I was doing, but just maybe copying and pasting some basic stuff around, kind of came back to me. And I thought, this is a really good opportunity to go back to that. And obviously it's tech, it's a great industry to work in. So actually, that was a starting point, but taking that job and making that first decision wasn't really a moment where I consciously kind of thought, hey, I'm going to change career and become a technical person. It was like, I might work for a tech company doing, creative stuff, but I'm not going to become a tech person. What actually happened then was, once I was there, because I needed to learn more about how the product worked in order to do really anything useful, they put me on the support help desk. And on the support help desk, I was receiving these support tickets and I didn't understand anything. I didn't understand what they were saying to me. So I had to learn all of this kind of slightly technical stuff from these users in order to handle that situation. And that made me think, hey, maybe I can do more than just this. Maybe I actually could challenge myself and understand a deeper level of what I'm dealing with day to day. So I kind of roped some developer friends in the company into teaching me a bit of coding, the wonderful language of PHP. And that was kind of like, that was really like the moment where I said to myself, like, this is an opportunity. You are around developers, you're around tech, you have an opportunity to learn, like, make the most of it and try. And so I was really lucky that I actually got to join the development team for like 3 months and commit code to the platform, even without, any experience or history of doing that.
Oh, I mean, that's really nice. So you decided to try development, and which is great, by the way. And now you're working as a product manager. So why did you decide to choose product management?
Yeah, I didn't quite finish the story there. So I didn't really choose product management, and I think other product managers probably tell a similar story. Product management kind of just chose me because I kind of just, as a developer, I started doing product management before I even knew what it was and before we even had this term product manager in the company. I think like these skills I picked up from other areas in my past had made it a little bit more possible for me to see things a bit outside the box, say, to the rest of the team. Yeah. So I was kind of always learning new things and challenging maybe why we were building certain things rather than just building them. So once I learned that what I was doing was product management and this was a real job and that was its title, product manager, I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. It's, in the middle of everything. And for me, it was really based on this possibility to build products or shape products and features that have an impact, can impact people's lives, can do cool things, can make people happy, and you get to be kind of at the forefront of that as a product manager. So yeah, I mean, it's a very cross-functional role. You wear a lot of hats and you get to learn new things all the time. So it was definitely for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I also think product manager is a fairly new job. And so some people might be wondering and say, okay, I mean, everything is great, but what does a product manager do, So would you like to explain that a bit more?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I hope my family are watching this because they might finally know what I do every day, but maybe that's too much to hope. So yeah, product management, it's a very varied thing and lots of people will tell you lots of different things about what it means. You get different flavors of product management. So what I do is not what every product manager does, but I think of product managers kind of like professional problem solvers. I've also kind of heard them described as like CEOs of the product. So I consider it my mission to fully synthesize the vision of the product, to the point where you have a single sentence in your brain that describes exactly, clearly, concisely what you are here for. What does this product do? And you need to make everyone else know that, and it should be there in the products that you deliver and the features you deliver and in your communications at all times. So being a product manager involves you work with stakeholders, you work with your customers to discover what the problems are. This is the sort of ask why 5 times part. Define some ideas of solutions that could solve those problems. Work then with maybe a designer or even just yourself to actually design, draw what you need to build. Then work with the engineers with these sort of drawings and say, hey, we need to build this, how are we going to do it? Get that delivered, then take it out into the world, get some feedback. Probably it's wrong, so you need to iterate on that a few more times, draw some more things, ask why a few more times, and then once you've done it, you've designed and delivered a feature or a product, you need to understand if it's working. So you need to be kind of confident and work with data, review the results, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a varied role and different elements of that come up at different times.
Yeah, and as you said, I also think that it really depends on kind of company product manager is working in. So yeah, that makes sense. And speaking about Cloud Academy, like, you know, your role at Cloud Academy, what does a day at Cloud Academy look like?
Yeah, I mean, okay, it can really vary depending on where we're at with stuff, but you know, of course, every day my day starts with a wonderful train ride through the Swiss mountains now, so that's a bonus. Very relaxing. Then yeah, normally we have in a day we'll probably have like some kind of what we call agile or scrum ceremonies, which is just a fancy word for a meeting. Basically, you know, so agile is kind of a methodology, you might have heard of it in tech world, which is just designed to help you build products more effectively, and it involves having a kind of a certain way of doing things in your week so that every week you can ship a small amount of product. And so, you know, every morning we have a stand-up. A stand-up is where you stand up and you tell everyone else in your squad or your team what you did yesterday, what you're going to do today, and if there's anything that's going on that's stopping you getting what you need to do done. So someone else might, for example, need to deliver something before you can deliver your thing. And we just talk about that. Very quick meeting, normally like 15 minutes. Then yeah, usually there'll be some time spent working on whatever new features or projects are going on. So I'll write like user stories, for example. So a user story again is just a fancy word for like writing down what we should do, but you put yourself more in the shoes of the user. So you'll say like, as a user, you might even say a type. So as an administrator at Cloud Academy, I want to, you know, quickly and easily assign a manager to a team. And then you approach what you need to build from that perspective rather than writing, I want to put a button in this place. And it helps you think a bit more outside the box. Yeah, normally I'll spend some time with like designers. We'll have some, you know, whiteboarding sessions, mock-ups and drawing, reviewing, stuff like that. There may be some great fun time spent QAing features. So when I say QA, I mean quality assurance, just means testing. So you need to, you know, do a lot of tests to make sure that everything's working as expected, and I'll help out the team when we need to do that. And then my favorite part really is customer calls. So normally every day I'll have at least 1 or 2 calls with our actual customers. And this is just a great opportunity where we can present our roadmap, features that are upcoming, features that might be ready for release that we'd like to get a little more feedback on before we actually send them out. And yeah, that's always a great experience just to really get to the bottom of how customers are receiving what we're doing and what they need next. And yeah, at the end of all of that, hopefully we might have a little aperitivo at the end.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that is true, because we are all huge fans, you know, huge aperitivo and happy hour fans in the Swiss office. So yeah, definitely. Okay, so we said that you started your career in marketing, then you landed a job in tech, and you're currently working in a tech and product company like Cloud Academy. What was your biggest challenge working in tech?
Okay, yeah, I mean, there has been a few. The one that comes to mind, I suppose, because it was kind of, I mean, almost mildly traumatic, really, was for some reason, when I was kind of early on in my product management journey, I had to basically crash learn DevOps, which is just kind of a word that means, you know, the stuff that makes all the code work, kind of. And I had to just learn a lot about this in like just a weekend, even though also I had never really even understood what it was. This was just because there was 2 proposals from 2 different sort of DevOps guys for how they wanted us to handle our pipelines. And again, just to explain, like a pipeline is really just, and again, a word that means once you've written the code, you need to get the code like somewhere else to be received by people. It can't just live on your computer. And there's lots of complex processes and automation that goes on in the background so that when I'm finished writing my code, I can press a button and then the code can go on a test environment, and then we can check it, and then we can press another button and it can go live for the customer. And we had 2 options for how this was going to work, which is related to being a product manager in that, you know, the way the customers receive the product is still relevant to your job. But people were telling me very strange things or words I'd never heard of, like containerized ECS service. And I was like, what is that? And I was thinking, I need to make this decision, so I'm going to have to learn all this stuff. So I just ended up, basically, I did a bit of research myself. I was like asking all my friends, like, what is this stuff? And then, you know, the next Monday morning, I like sit all these DevOps guys down in this room with these paper and pens, and I'm like, you need to explain this to me. So many hours, many questions, many DevOps guys crying later. I was like, okay, I kind of understand enough now to decide that this simpler version is probably the best option. So that was just a big challenge, because it takes a lot of kind of humility, I suppose, to admit to people who are very confident in what they know that you don't understand the things that they understand, and that they need to explain them to you. So yeah, that's the challenge, really. Like, you just need to have that confidence and say to people, I don't understand what that is.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you've just said something really important, which is how important asking questions is, you know, and this is definitely our mindset here at Cloud Academy. Like, you keep asking questions until you get, you know, a clearer idea about either the subject, the topic, or the problem you're trying to fix. And you know that you can also rely on your colleagues' expertise and help, which is really important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a great experience working in a very supportive environment, because, you know, to this day, I don't know everything and I still need to ask for people to explain what that means many times.
Yeah, exactly. So you said, okay, you had to spend a lot of time studying and learning DevOps. How much are training courses and learning in general important for a product manager? Did you follow any training courses?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, learning is super important for everyone in any role. But also, you know, in product management, it's a highly cross-functional role, and knowing more about the things that go on around you will always help you if you want to go into that. So I actually started with books, because that's kind of more my learning style. And, you know, actually in our product team, so I work with numerous other product managers here at Cloud Academy. We all have very different learning styles, which makes it really interesting, because we build a learning platform as a team. And so, you know, it actually means that it accommodates everyone in a lot of ways, because I will always push for more text content and other people will push for videos, etc. So yeah, I kind of started with lots of just books about product management, about engineering, just kind of picked up everything on the shelves, really, to try and get to grips with it. Then I started also going to like meetups, conferences, events, that kind of thing, back when we were allowed to do those things in person, of course. And that was great, for meeting people, asking questions, and getting a different spin on stuff. I did do a few in-person courses here or there. Like, I did a business analysis kind of certification thing. And I did, obviously, as we've kind of discussed, I invested like quite a lot of time learning the technical skills that I had lacked, basically. So obviously stuff like Cloud Academy is great for learning basic cloud skills, basic coding skills. And I also really recommend it, like, doing stuff yourself. So don't be scared, just Google a tutorial, give it a shot, write a couple of lines of code, and prove to yourself you can do it. And then after I'd kind of got the basics, and obviously I'd had some hands-on experience in the tech world, I chose to do my AWS Solution Architect Associate certification, which is obviously something at Cloud Academy. We have plenty of training and stuff to get you through those certifications. And yeah, and in general, I just found like doing as much stuff as possible across a broad range of spectrums was pretty much really helpful for being a product manager in the end.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as you said, platforms like Cloud Academy can definitely help people be successful, you know, in their jobs, but also support your career change. And, you know, we can do that providing awesome tech content, but also quizzes, hands-on labs. And we can also help people prepare for their, you know, AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud certifications, which is important. And speaking about certifications, let me go back to the AWS certification you mentioned earlier. I mean, it's really interesting, you know, especially because you don't really have, you know, like a really tech background, but you know, found a way to get certified, which is great. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that certification, and why did you choose to go for that AWS certification?
Yeah, at the time, obviously, I chose to do the AWS one rather than another provider, because that was the system that we chose. So, you know, in the tech world, we're all moving to the cloud rather than having servers sitting in your office. And there's basically 3 providers you can choose from in the world, like Amazon Web Services, Azure, or Google. And we were using AWS, so that made that part of the decision easy. And yeah, as a product manager, I guess I don't always meet that many people who would go for that specific certification, but the solution architect's largely considered the most popular one to get. And I think that makes sense because it's quite broad, but it is still quite technical. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There are less technical, more introductory certifications that you can do. This is more like, can you actually understand the different services that are out there that can help you build an infrastructure? Now, as a product manager, why that was important to me was because sometimes these types of decisions are actually very impactful to the product. And the more advanced your tech, what we call the tech stack, and by that I just mean like all the different technologies you're using and that you've chosen, you know, when you make decisions about that, it will mean that you have more or less options available to you in terms of what you want to build. So, you know, if you have that understanding, you're able to push the boundaries of product a little bit more in certain cases, because you can, for example, suggest, hey, maybe we could think about using this service and this would solve a technical problem that unblocks a product problem that we would like to solve. It could just be as simple as doing stuff with a framework or a service that's very popular called serverless, which it kind of is what it sounds. It's, you know, but it's actually not. But yeah, it's simple to learn. It just means, you're not really using servers in the same way as before. It's very popular, but using that, for example, could make your product faster, and everyone likes a fast product. So understanding those services, I think, is kind of important. And on the other hand, I also just wanted to prove that I could do it, because, again, it was still hard for me. I wasn't technical. There was some difficult stuff to learn, and it's always nice to have that kind of badge to say, hey, you managed to do that. As well as that, I will say, just for people who might be wondering, I did really find when I was applying for jobs before I got the job at Cloud Academy that having my AWS certification was very helpful in getting interviews. It just proves to employers or potential employers that you've done it and you do know what you're talking about. It's very highly regarded, I think, in the tech world.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. And, you know, Brownie, I also wanted to briefly talk about making mistakes, because, I mean, we're not perfect, both as human beings and as professionals, and we'll make mistakes. So what does it mean to make mistakes as a product manager?
Yeah, I mean, as a product manager, you will, as I already said, get stuff wrong. It's part of the process. But being a product manager for me really means taking kind of extreme ownership of what you do. So any mistakes that occur in the product are your mistakes, even if they were delivered by someone else, or even if they're someone who came before you. At this point, if it's your product, that's your issue. And yeah, I think the point, as I said, is that making mistakes is actually part of the process. So if you have these kind of processes in place, you're catching mistakes before they're ultimately in the product in its final form. For me, the biggest mistakes are when you sit in a user test. So a user test is something we often do when we're sort of test driving a new product or feature, get some random person basically and say, hey, can you do this set of tasks? So can you create a company? Can you create a team? Can you add users to the team? Can you give a user a license? Ask them to go through it, and you record the screen and ask them to talk you through what they're doing as they're doing it and what they're sort of experiencing and seeing. When that goes horribly wrong, it's pretty painful. So when you make a big design mistake, at least you catch it before it's live, but watching it in real time, watching a user just completely not be able to find anything in your design is definitely pretty painful. So yeah, I think you just need to be humble that this will happen to you, that you're not perfect, and not very many people do get it right first time, and always trust in your data, like the user test, to tell you what the truth is.
Awesome. Okay. And going back to your studies and also to your early jobs, how much did your background in marketing and media have a positive impact on your success as a product manager?
Yeah, I really think doing other stuff helps you see things in different ways. And, you know, I don't think all product managers should have my background, because the core of a good product team, you'll usually have different types of product manager. Like one of my colleagues, for example, is a CTO, the chief technical officer. Like he can code, he can do everything. Whereas I obviously never did that sort of level of tech, and I have a very different background, and that's what makes it work, I think. So, you know, you learn skills from the kind of stuff I did, like, you know, being more empathic with the marketing team because you understand what their job is like. And, you know, overall, I would say pivoting into tech just in general, wherever you're coming from, gives you this sense of kind of gratitude for that. So I always wake up thinking like, it's cool that I do this and I should work hard because not everyone gets to do this.
Yeah, that makes sense. But was not having any tech knowledge an impediment to your career as a product manager?
Yes and no. Okay, so like it's hard to be a product manager with no technical knowledge. So if I had never bothered to learn it, then yeah, it would have been a problem and I probably would not be a product manager. But the point I think I'm trying to make here is that it's not having tech knowledge is not an impediment to getting tech knowledge. So if you accept that, you know, you can be technical, you know, you can do this, you don't need to have studied it at university or even at school or anything, you can start now. Once you accept that, then, you know, if whether or not it's an impediment to being a product manager is no longer a question because, you know, you have the skills that you need.
Awesome. And speaking about tech skills, this is a tough question, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, truth or dare, and you can only pick truth. So, have you ever overinflated your resume?
You know, I never pick truth, but I'll do this one. Yeah, okay, so I do, obviously, I believe, you know, we should all make tech accessible. I'm not a fan of using fancy words for no reason, etc. But yeah, my resume does include some, like, you know, fancy sounding, like I said, like ECS containerization, you know, yeah, okay. Sometimes bullet pointing that is kind of something you need to do, I think, on your resume. So yeah, when I say on my CV, like, I can do Python, I can do JavaScript, what I kind of mean is like, I roughly know how to copy the right code off of Stack Overflow. So maybe, yeah.
Just a bit. No, okay, yeah. I mean, I think in general, it doesn't hurt if you add some, you know, catchy keywords in your resume, as long as you can prove, you know, to have at least, you know, some knowledge about those skills, especially during an interview. But, you know, I also think that the perfect candidate doesn't exist. So I usually tell people, don't let a job description stop you from sending your application. Because, I mean, of course, your experience and skill set should be in line with the company's requirements for the job. But if you don't have all the, you know, all the skills listed in the job description, but you think you might be a really good fit for the role, I mean, I would say just apply and show them what you got.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, it comes to mind that I'm pretty sure on the Cloud Academy job description when I applied, it said like 5 years product experience. And I was kind of like, 4, but close enough, you know, just send. So here we are.
Yeah, exactly. And do you think a career can be accessible to anyone who is passionate about it? And of course, I'm asking you this based on your experience.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, I'm living proof. I'm not saying it's not going to be challenging, because it is, but you know, really there is a long way to go, I think, in the world in terms of like making tech accessible to everyone. So yeah, but you know, there are lots of great tools out there. There are lots of great groups out there trying to solve this problem for different people who need that help. For me, there's not really still enough focus on reskilling or changing career like later in life. For me, you know, there are these groups, you know, and they're great. That they come to your schools, for example, and they say, you know, like, do STEM, do science, do maths, you know, and try to get you involved at an early age. And I don't know, for me, if that had happened in my school, I don't think it would have changed my path, right? So I think it's important to remember that that's not the only opportunity you have to have your mind changed. Like, you can wake up today at whatever age, 30, 40, 80, I don't care, and decide on that day, I want to be a product manager, I want to be a developer, or whatever, even if it's the other way around, you want to be an artist, like, you can do it. There is support out there. So yeah, I think tech is becoming more diverse every day as well, which helps, because, you know, before maybe tech meant, yeah, you had to sit at a computer, write code, play Dungeons and Dragons, you know, and although I do play Dungeons and Dragons, I would say like stuff like product management, which wasn't around maybe 10 years ago, more and more roles like this are coming up, which kind of fuse different elements of roles. It's not as hard cut as it used to be.
Yeah, definitely. And what would your recommendations be to someone deciding to make a career change like you did?
Yeah, okay, so I would say for sure, like, start small. Go away from this if you're interested in doing this, if you feel like inspired to try. Find one small thing that you can do after this webinar. Google something like Hello World Python. Might not make sense to you, but you'll figure it out. Do something like that. You know, go on Cloud Academy and find Introduction to Python. And you'll find out by doing this that it's actually not that hard if you just start with a small thing, because then you know you can do the next small thing and the next small thing. Another thing I think is pretty good is starting your own project. Like thinking again, and probably keep it small, but something that you could, whatever element of this tech world you're interested in, if it's just designing or planning, if it's building it, think of something that you might want to do that for. You can then explore all of the like tools and resources that can help you. For example, if you want to build a to-do list app, just Google to-do list app code and something will probably come up. It's a very, very accessible example of how to build that kind of easy thing. For me as well, I chose to start my own project. It's called StarHatch. It's an app that I built using low-code platforms, which are another great option to get into tech because it's more like drag and drop. You know, I reached a point where, yeah, okay, I could learn to code, but maybe there's an easier way to do this fast if you're just experimenting. So yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out that kind of stuff. And yeah, of course, meeting people, asking them questions like, do you already know someone who works in tech? Yes, you do, because you know me. So reach out to people that you know or have heard of. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, I don't mind. Maybe there's someone in your company that you can shadow, that you can have a drink with after work and ask them these questions. Go to meetups and events if you're allowed. Go to them online if you're not. And yeah, as I said earlier, like you just need to not be scared of asking stupid questions to people because honestly, they're not going to think badly of you for that. In fact, after a while, they'll find it endearing that you want to learn from them. And yeah, I guess like just don't worry if you don't understand stuff at the beginning, because just accepting that some things won't make sense until later is a good way to progress. You know, like I vividly remember the words that I was just like, what is this when I first started in this industry? Things like, oh, an instance. I was like, what does that mean? Later down the line, I found out what that meant, but I didn't need to learn that on day one.
Yeah, and I do agree with you. I think being curious and open-minded is really important for every job, but especially if you're making, like a career change. That kind of mindset can really help you in the transition. And also, as you said, it can happen that we're afraid to ask questions. Maybe we're thinking, oh, no, I think my questions are just stupid, But I mean, that's understandable. But at the same time, we should not let that fear stop us from being, again, curious and learning more about things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, awesome. Brian, I have one last question for you. Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently about your studies or your career?
Okay, well, yeah, after everything I've said, I mean, and this may hint at an answer, but I'm not sure yet. I actually did start an undergraduate degree in physics last year. I study it part-time, obviously on the side of doing this. And for me, like, that was a whole new level of what the hell does that mean for me. So yeah, actually, though, for all that might imply, oh, yeah, I wish I'd done physics. I wish I had not done history. This would have all been so much easier. I don't think that's true, because the choice to do physics only happened and was only inspired by my realization that I could be technical, So I was thinking, like, if I've already learned to commit some code for an actual, live piece of software, maybe that thing I said, like, I'm so bad at maths. Is that true? Like, if I already did this thing, maybe the other things were also lies. Like, maybe those people who said you're bad at maths, maybe that wasn't true. So, I don't actually think that I can say that I would change anything, because I think yeah, there's a lot of advantage to having different experiences. It makes you more grateful for what you do now, and it makes it feel more like a real choice. And, you know, also on the physics side of things, like discovering all this math stuff, like imaginary numbers at my age is kind of cool because you really appreciate how weird that is. Whereas when you're a child, you sort of just get on with it. You're like, yeah, sure, they're imaginary. Now I'm like, what? So yeah, honestly, yeah, if I had done all that stuff first, I'd just be sitting here telling you about how I've pivoted into the arts, and now I'm like, you know, a historian. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, Bryony. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I do think your suggestions were really, insightful. And thank you again. So let's see if we have any questions from our audience. Okay, let me see. Okay, I think we have a pretty good one here. What do you like the most about working as a product manager at Cloud Academy?
There's so many things. I love basically, I mean, the first thing and the reason I take jobs in places like this is I love knowing that I'm contributing to more people in the whole world who know about tech, right? That's what we do. We train people in tech, and it could be advanced, it could be basic stuff. I think that's really cool. So I really love coming into work knowing that I'm helping with that mission to like help people become technical, whether they already know they are or whether they don't. I also really love that we use cool cutting edge technology ourselves to do stuff. So like one of the big things we do also on the enterprise side is, you know, use algorithms to quantify tech skills, to give you a number that is, you know, relevant to how good you are at certain tech skills. And then we can map the gaps in your skill set or in a team, in their skill set or in a whole company, and then tell you, hey, this is where you need to upskill, which I just think is super cool. And it's nice to always be learning more from the teams who work on that kind of cool stuff. Maybe me one day, who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? Awesome. Let me see if we have any more questions. Oh yeah, here's another one. Is math important for getting a first technical job?
For me, no. But I guess in a sense, like I was lucky in that my first job wasn't strictly, I wasn't given my first job necessarily as a technical role. It wasn't like I applied for a technical job and then they were like, oh, we'll just give you a chance at this job you have no experience for. It was more like I applied for a very generalized kind of graduate role, and it kind of formed into a technical thing. So I did not do maths at school beyond, I didn't do it for a single minute past the point I was allowed to stop. Let's put it that way. And I only just picked it up now. So, and you know, and the fact that I never understood any of that stuff until I'm telling you the truth, like last year was the first time I think I've ever done a quadratic equation. And not knowing how to do that did not ever stop me from either doing that job or, you know, forgetting a job. And I don't know, I mean, I can't speak for every job in the world. There are obviously going to be companies out there who are going to have requirements and they care about those things for those reasons, and I can't stop that being the case. But in terms of like what it teaches you and what you know, math does help you maybe think more logically about stuff, but I never had a problem thinking logically about stuff without having done the kind of formalized work. Again, no, if you feel like you're seeing maybe specific types of technical job that are requiring you to know this stuff, then the challenge is just to go and learn it, right? If they need you to have some math qualification, you can also learn it. I mean, you may think it's not necessary. If that's the job you want though, and that's what they're asking, then my point is that, yeah, I'm 28, I'm learning maths, so it's okay.
Yeah, definitely. I do agree with you. Awesome. Let me see. I don't think we have enough time. Yeah, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. So if we didn't get around to, answering your questions, we will try our best to answer via email. And thank you again, Bryony, for answering my questions.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you to Valentina and Bryony for leading this session. It was really cool. I loved it. And of course, thank you to our audience. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. But before we part ways, just a couple of reminders that this webinar was recorded and will be shared with you via email as soon as it is available. Please do fill out our end of webinar survey. For us, receiving your feedback is extremely helpful in understanding what kind of webinars you'd like to see more of, what you liked about this session, and of course, what we can improve. Any suggestion is more than welcome. One last thing, if you're interested in working at Cloud Academy, check out the career page on our website. And again, thank you for joining us, and until next time, goodbye, everybody.
Thank you so
Bye.
much, everyone. Goodbye.